Hi, it's Amy. It's the 14th of September 2023, and so I thought I would read aloud for you today Emily Lawless's entry for the 14th of September 1899 from her book A Garden Diary. However it may be in other gardens, seed sowing I find to be the very center and kernel of this one. The sowing of seeds is apt to be accounted merely a matter of the raising of a due supply of annuals, sapoglossus, and she's using some terms here, Nicotiana, Labella, Nymphaea, Clarkia, Bartonia, Gaudetia, and along, etc. With us, it is the perennial occupants of our flower beds, which must either be grown from seed or else not grown at all. This fact was early impressed upon our minds, and in a very summary and effectual fashion, such as nature's fashion of instilling indispensable truths, for the most part is. It was 3 years ago that we were a pair of destitute garden owners. We had, however, good friends with large gardens. The connection was perfectly self-evident. Without a moment's hesitation, the basket went round. The response was noble. Plants came to us from north, south, east, and west, especially west. Alas for those plants. They were just what we wanted. They were moved at the right time. They were packed with care. They were not unreasonably long in the road. They arrived to all appearance in excellent health. They were received with all respect they deserved, and their wants provided for as far as our poor knowledge of those wants enabled us to cater for them. Never were elaborate arrangements less handsomely rewarded. Seasons return, but never have to us return those plants, so generously bestowed, so hopefully planted. In my private garden book, a list of them still exists, and a very black list it is to refer to. There they stand as they were written down in all the pride of proprietorship. Unhappily, a later entry shows a large round O standing out prominently against nearly every one of them. Now a round O in that book signifies death. From this disaster we arose chastened gardeners. It was determined that no more guileless plants should be brought to such a fate, no more kindly owners exploited for so inadequate a result. Remembering the good, dark, comfortable earth from which most of those plants came, sadly surveying the very different earth to which they had been consigned, the cause of their doom could hardly be called mysterious. Friendly gardens, unless laboring under our own disabilities, being thus excluded, the question remained, how were the flower beds to get themselves filled? Only one answer to that question has ever presented itself to the professional gardening mind, and that is, send to the nurseryman. Now that nurseryman may or may not be an excellent one. Ours, as it happens, may fairly, I think, be called so. Good or bad, he is never a functionary to be approached without deference, at least by those in whose eyes thrift stands for something in the battle of life. But common plants are so cheap, one is often told. Very likely they may be, indeed, judging by their catalogues. Nurserymen stand habitually astonished before the spectacle of their own moderation. An average herbaceous plant, a lupin or a larkspur, let us say, costs as a rule about 9d. It may sink as low as 6d, or it may rise as high as a shilling. Anybody, it will be argued, can afford 6d. Some people have been known to spend a whole shilling without wincing. A very short walk along any ordinary garden border, calculating as one goes the number of 6d worth it would take to fill it, will be found an excellent corrective for such lightheartedness. I made such a calculation myself only the other day, and the result was an eminently sobering one. Seeds, on the other hand, are honestly cheap. There are expensive seedsmen, but generally speaking, 3d is the price of a fair-sized packet of the commoner perennials, and 6d for one of the scarcer kinds. This initial difference is, however, an infinitesimal part of the real one. It is the magnificent possibilities, the vast redundancy of those sixpences, as compared with the others, which is the real point. Not one plant, but dozens of plants, often hundreds of plants, may be the result of a single successful sowing. Nor is the time lost by such sowings nearly as great as people seem to imagine. But the number of plants to be had in the course of a year by this means is only part of the advantage to be gained by it. The great advantage is that by doing so, one's plants become acquainted betimes with the qualities of the soil in which they find themselves, and so getting acquainted, they reconcile themselves to it, as we most of us do reconcile ourselves to any environment, however little naturally to our taste, which has compressed us round from babyhood. To come to details, alpine plants, though small to look at, are for the most part tolerably dear to buy. If a man, whatever his sex, loves his alpines, is determined to have them, has a fairly big alpine garden or border to fill, but will not be at the trouble of rearing them from the seed, then I shall be rather sorry for that man's pocket. A few of them, notably the Androscaceae, are not amiable in the matter of germination, and these therefore require a mother plant or two to begin upon. Others, of which the Genetians may be taken as a type, are unendurably slow in appearing, though if a safe place can be found for their seed box, and it is then forgotten, the time passes. The great majority of alpines, fortunately, will grow perfectly well from seed, even ultra-fastidious ones, such as the Silene aculis or Ramondia pyranacea, which for that reason rank high in nurserymen's catalogues, doing perfectly well with care, and of course at a 15th part of the cost. Details like these have a sordid ring, and I have to remind myself that it is upon the successful wrestling with them that one's ultimate failure or triumph wholly hinges. Thrift, moreover, is the badge of every proper-minded husbandman, and it is according to the thriftiness of his husbandry that nature rewards his labors. By nature, I hear some cavalier exclaim, nature is herself the most reckless of spendthrifts. She is the very mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother of extravagance. She squanders her treasures as the rain clouds squander their raindrops, and tosses her wreath abroad like dust upon the desert air. True, she does do all this, but I am not aware that she ever specially desired that her children should follow her example. What are your poor little savings, your petty extravagances, we might imagine her saying, that they should be likened to mine? Farther, by an odd paradox, it is upon her wastefulness that our thrift rests most securely. We possess, say, one solitary plant of some kind given, and we find that with that single plant her lavishness has freely provided us with the material of 100, possibly many hundred others. There is scarcely a plant we can name that by some means or another, by division, by layers, by seeds, by cuttings, or by some other equally simple variation of the garden craft, may not be multiplied almost without limit. Truly, there is something staggering about such fecundancy, and the brain of even the strongest gardener might be expected to whirl as he contemplates it. Following in imagination the history of almost any flowering plant, yonder pimpernel astray on the gravel will do, giving it only time enough, a fair field, and not too many rivals, and we shall find that it has gone far towards peopling every waste space within reach. Nay, if the process could be continued long enough, by the mere law of its organic existence, its descendants are capable of reddening their entire native countryside for a dozen miles around. And that's the end of that chapter there on seedlings, propagating plants, and whatnot. And I've just hit a spot in the book where we have kind of significant foxing here, which is interesting because the rest of the book is not nearly that bad. But we'll leave it there. The next entry here is for the 16th of September, 1899.